But it's not on. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from downtown Toronto at the Sheraton Hotel. Welcome to the Empire Club. For those of you joining either by podcast or webcast, welcome to the meeting. Today, we're lucky to hear from a man who has deep experience on the front lines of energy. Mark Poweska is a 25-year veteran of the industry. He was appointed president and CEO of Hydro One in May. An engineer by training, he knows the industry from head to tail. He's worked in generation, transmission, and distribution. It's an easy case to make that Hydro One is one of the most important companies in Ontario. Looking back and considering its legacy of over 100 years, Hydro One has helped keep the lights on in our homes and our businesses, providing Ontarians with safe, efficient, and reliable power. But in the more recent history, the job of leading Hydro One has changed. I would argue it's become a little trickier. It has been 5 years since an IPO took the company public, and 1 year since the election of Doug Ford brought profound change to the leadership of the organization. What is clear is Mark has a big job and a long list of stakeholders to answer to, including 1.4 million customers and more than 8,600 employees. Hydro One continues to make a big impact. It operates the vast majority of the high-voltage transmission grid across the province, and the company has injected an estimated $1.3 billion into the Ontario economy in the last year alone. For all these reasons, it's clear Mark is a major player in the energy sector. It's a privilege to have him at the Empire Club, and it's my honor to welcome him to our stage.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Mike, for that kind introduction and for the reminder of the importance of Hydro One in Ontario and on this province. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. It's a pleasure to be here today to speak to you about charting the course for the future for Hydro One. Because I'm new to Ontario and new to this company, I thought I would start by just sharing a little bit about myself and a little bit about my background. As many of you know, and Mike mentions, I do come from BC, and I'm truly grateful for the warm welcome that I've received since coming to Ontario. My family and I are settling in very nicely here. I grew up in a small town in BC known as Cranbrook, where I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in the outdoors. I developed a lifelong passion for the environment and our shared responsibility to protect that environment for future generations. The strong connection between the environment and electricity is one of the reasons that I took up engineering and spent over 26 years in the electricity sector in BC, and it's one of the reasons that I decided to come here to Hydro One. Many people ask me why I chose Hydro One, and some even ask, what were you thinking? And, to me, the answer is actually pretty clear and pretty obvious. It starts with the remarkable opportunity to lead one of the largest T&D companies in North America and the largest in Ontario. And the more I learn about Hydro One, our people, and our commitment to our customers, the more I see an incredible opportunity for us here in Ontario. We're able to set a new course and write a new story for this great company that has such a deep and long history in Ontario. I see the role we can play in building a brighter future together right here at home. Hydro One has an opportunity to be a leading utility in North America, and I'll be sharing some of our plans today with how we intend to get there. We are committed to growing the value of this company, not only for our shareholders, but also for the customers and the people of this province. Hydro One is focused on what really matters to shareholders, to customers, to employees, to Indigenous peoples, and to all Ontarians. And I'll explain what I mean by that today. But to truly understand the opportunities that we have in front of us here, we first need to understand what is going on around us. So I want to start with talking about the global perspective in energy. So the energy industry has been going through what I would call transformational change. And the pace of that change is getting faster. Over the last 10 years, the global demand for electricity has not kept up with the economic growth. In the past, it was simple. As the economy grew, new factories were built, new businesses popped up, energy and electricity grew with that. Well, economic growth today looks quite a bit different than it did in the past, and so does the growth of electricity. With the advent of new technologies, energy-efficient products, the demand for electricity has slowed globally and in a lot of places flattened relative to the economic growth. But this trend is expected to shift yet again. There's many experts globally that are now anticipating that the consumption of electricity will double by 2050. And there are a few reasons for this. Entire industries are becoming further electrified, such as transportation and the building sectors. For context, the amount of power required for 3 electric vehicles over the course of a year is about the same as the entire household in Ontario. So 3 vehicles is equivalent to 1 household. As we see continued adoption of technologies like EVs, we will see an increased drive for demand for electricity in this province and globally. The electricity sector will also see continued growth in the coming decades, fueled by mass global decarbonization of industries. At the same time, utilities across the globe are moving towards non-emitting sources of energy, such as solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear. Here in Canada, we are a global leader, with about 80% of our energy, electrical energy, produced by non-emitting sources. For comparison, the UK is at about 60%, and the US has 1/3 of their energy from non-emitting sources. 1/3 still comes from coal, and 1/3 still comes from gas. So utility companies around the world who are increasingly focused on sustainability, and this extends beyond working to reduce our greenhouse gases and our environmental footprints. With the increasing effects of climate change and extreme weather events, utilities are making it a priority to invest in hardening their grids and improving the resiliency of their assets. We are also seeing utilities move toward non-traditional technologies and adopting things like decentralized energy sources and microgrids to further mitigate these types of risks. Only last year we saw the effects of climate change on a utility. PG&E experienced almost $30 billion in liabilities and penalties for its part in the devastating impacts of the wildfires in California. The effects of climate change on our industry are already very real and only expected to increase, and we need to be ready for that. So the picture in Ontario. These global trends apply to Canada and indeed to Ontario. At home in Canada, we face an additional reality. That reality is the urgent need to reinvest and modernize our grid across this country. Canadian generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure is decades old and needs renewing. And the industry in Canada is meeting this challenge by investing nearly $20 billion a year in infrastructure renewal and market growth. In Ontario, we are facing the same trends and realities here. However, in many ways, we are at an advantage to North American or global utilities and jurisdictions. GHG emissions in Ontario in the electricity sector have been reduced 80% with the drive towards more renewables such as wind, solar, hydro, and nuclear. Today in Ontario, the electricity system is 90% free from greenhouse gas emissions. And we are the first jurisdiction in North America who had coal to eliminate coal from their fleet, which makes us a leader in North America. Well, the average power bill in Ontario currently is lower, actually, than the average across the United States and many countries in the UK. We know that being a leader on the move to clean has been a costly move. And while other regions in North America and around the world still need to catch up and experience the growing pains of that move to green energy, in Ontario, we've already made that shift. And I believe this does and will give Ontario a competitive advantage in the long run. As our sectors evolve, the industrial and commercial demands for electricity in Ontario are changing as well. While we're seeing declining demand in the manufacturing sectors, we're seeing increased demand in greenhouse sectors and mining. We need to be ready to supply these and other emerging industries with power they need to grow and evolve. We're also seeing increased adoption of the non-traditional technologies, such as decentralized generation, which increasingly is coming from renewable sources. These energy sources will need to be supported by new transmission infrastructure, creating investment opportunities for us right here in Ontario. A strong energy sector in Ontario is critical to a thriving economy. The accessibility and cost of electricity is a critical factor in the flow of capital into this province. We need to make it affordable and easier to do business with and get connected right here in Ontario. Turning to Hydro One. We've considered the trends I've spoken about in changing the course for our future. But more importantly, I believe we have an important obligation to truly understand the needs and expectations of our customers and our stakeholders. And that's what I've spent the last 6 months in this position doing. So who is Hydro One? We are one of the largest pure-play electric transmission and distribution companies in North America. We operate in a consistent and stable rate-regulated environment with virtually no exposure to generation or commodity resources. We're a wires company. We operate 98% of the transmission in this province and about a quarter of Ontario's distribution network. On the transmission side, we provide transmission service to 42 local distribution companies, with Toronto Hydro being our biggest single customer, and over 80 directly connected industrial customers, including the likes of Ford, Goldcorp, and Toyota. Our local distribution business is also the largest in Ontario, serving approximately 1.4 million residential and business customers. To put this all into perspective, through our transmission business, we serve almost 40% of the Canadian population and 40% of the industries that drive the GDP in this country. So that's the long answer. What's the short answer? The short answer is that we're a company delivering the power that drives the economy in Ontario. And we're a company that is redefining itself. We're leaving the past behind today, and we're focused on what matters. So we've done a lot of research, had meaningful conversations to understand what all our stakeholders need and expect from Hydro One. And we see a great deal of alignment between what our stakeholders, customers, employees, and our shareholders are looking for from us. When I say we're focused on what matters, I'm talking about excellent customer service, asset renewal, and running a safe and efficient business right here in Ontario. We know that focusing on these things will drive success for our customers and for our shareholders alike. So no matter what changes in the industry and what changes the industry is experiencing, we will succeed when we put our customer at the center of everything we do. Since 2015, Hydro One has been on a journey to serve our customers with excellence. We have the highest residential and small business customer satisfaction we've had in over a decade. In fact, we saw residential satisfaction scores in Q3 reach 87%, which is the highest we've seen. However, we believe that we can and we will do better. We understand that the needs and expectations of our customers are changing, New technologies and companies like Amazon and Uber are raising the bar and the expectations of our customers, and we need to meet those expectations. So we will position ourselves to meet those. It's why we're investing in digital technology to improve every touch point we have with our customer so that they can engage with us when and how they want to engage with us. And it's why we're investing in our contact centers and adding new online tools. We have a vast and diverse customer base here in Ontario. Large customers and local utilities depend on us for continued supply of reliable electricity. Large industrial customers need us to act as a trusted partner to help them manage their energy use, to help them be successful in their businesses. Residential customers expect us to advocate for them and meet their evolving expectations. And all of our customers expect us to run an efficient company and look for ways to drive costs out of this business. We will put ourselves in the shoes of all of our customers to shape our interactions and ensure we are supporting their unique needs. Our continued focus on customers will yield positive results in terms of customer satisfaction, but it will also result in more tailored services that you may not expect from your traditional utility. So asset renewal. Millions of Ontarians, businesses, and the economy itself depend on the reliability of our assets. I believe that how we manage our assets is really a testament on how we are performing as a utility. The global trends I discussed earlier are certainly impacting how we invest in our grid. Perhaps the most important factor here in Ontario is the fact that we have an aging grid. Much of the transmission system was built in the 1950s, and we must make responsible, smart, and sustainable renewable investments in that system now. That's why we're investing $5 billion over the next 5 years. These investments will deliver the best value for money, they'll prevent outages, increase resiliency, and protect against physical and cyber threats. And they'll help us quickly restore power when things do happen. We'll also enable the integration of new sources like renewable energy, like distributed energy resources to tie to our grid. Investing in our assets takes focus. We must make the right investments at the right time to achieve the best outcomes for our customers. By investing in our aging infrastructure today, we will build a grid to serve the needs of tomorrow. We will also deliver value to customers and shareholders alike. Ensuring a reliable grid for the future is our greatest responsibility as a company, and it is our greatest opportunity right here in Ontario. And finally, but most importantly, I want to talk about safety and efficiency. I'm passionate about safety culture because I see the impacts of what happens when you're not passionate and focused on safety every day. So I'm deeply committed to safety in our company and to every one of our employees coming home safely every day. I'm also passionate about safety because when you focus on safety, something remarkable really happens. A mindset steps in, and a steadfast focus on safety results in this mindset of ownership and accountability for safety, which takes hold in every part of your company. It drives accountability, makes us a company that's more thoughtful, a company that's more systematic, more focused on proven, repeatable processes. That also makes us a better managed company, and I believe it'll make us a more efficient company. Focusing on safety is good business. So focusing on efficiency, that begins with a private sector mindset. Since our privatization in 2015, we've achieved productivity savings of nearly $250 million. We've reduced our cost to operate this system over that same time period. The productivity savings we've delivered and the reduction in our operating costs are powerful examples of the disciplined approach, and we will continue to dig deeper to generate efficiencies in both our OM&A and our capital delivery. I believe we must become the most efficient utility in North America, because I believe Hydro One can be the utility of choice for our customers, for our employees, for our communities, and for our shareholders. So we are going to stay focused on this mindset of discipline and accountability to deliver on our commitment for our customers, stakeholders, employees, and shareholders. In closing, let me say that when I joined this company in May of this year, it marked the start of a new chapter for me in my life. It also marked the start of a new chapter for Hydro One. I'm inspired by the bright future that we have here in Ontario, and I'm looking forward to the future of Hydro One and serving the customers across this province. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Mark. We do have a chance for folks to ask a couple questions. There may be a roving mic or two out there. But why don't I just kick it off? You talked a lot about the customer, and of course, utilities, the reputation isn't being customer focused the way you've described it. Of course, with distributed energy resources, storage, renewable generation assets, I suppose that's changing how you think of it. Can you talk just a little bit more about how the customer is sort of the center of how you're thinking about the business?
Yeah, sure, and you're absolutely right. Traditionally, customers didn't have choice. But with new technologies such as rooftop solar, batteries, distributed energy, community aggregators, customers have choice, and we have to evolve and recognize that they have choice. So we have to meet their needs, not ask them to meet our needs. And so that's really what we're focused on, is how can we meet their needs. At the same time, like I said, the companies like Uber and others are setting that bar. Companies don't want to actually talk to us, believe it or not.
Right.
They would actually interact, or customers don't want to talk to us. They'd rather interact with us on their phone or digitally. And so we're giving them those choices and offering those to our customers.
That's perfect. Any questions out there? Right over here we have, there's a mic for you.
Here's the mic.
Yeah, I'm from Niagara. I can see that Ontario has an idealistic and a practical leader to lead us into the 21st century. However, having said that, Canada, I believe, contributes to global warming 1 or 2%, which is very commendable as an example. Is there any, since now you are an investor utility, is there any effort to promote that elsewhere where other countries or other cultures are not following our example, and at the same time make it a good business, because then the revenue could come back and we'd get even better rates. The second question I have is this, that the future seems to be electrical cars, which will need more hydro, and as you pointed out, 3 cars, 1 household per 1 year. What about the impact of the petroleum industry for survival? I mean, if I'm selling a lot of gasoline, I don't want to close down. What do you see the evolution from the present gasoline engine industry to the electrical car industry, which will dominated by the electrical companies?
Yeah. Great questions, and you're assuming I can remember 2 questions. So let me try the first one. Absolutely, I think we need to better brand ourselves, both Ontario and Canada, as being leaders in reducing emitting resources. I just came back from a conference in Florida where all the publicly traded utilities in North America essentially were there, and one of the presentations actually showed what I talked about, whereas in the U.S. it's a third non-emitting, a third gas, and a third coal. And you look at state after state after state, they have standards, either renewable portfolio standards or clean standards, that they're expecting their utilities to clean up by a certain amount of time. We're already there. We've experienced those costs, and I see that south of the border, those costs are going to start to go up as they try to get there. So we have actually a great opportunity to brand ourselves as a country and as a province as a great place to work. The second, or to invest and spend your money. The second part of that is when you talk to investors in our sector, but broadly, ESG, environmental, social, and governance, is becoming more and more important to investors. And we have a great story to tell from that aspect. Hydro One in particular, because we don't have any exposure to the commodities or the generation, but Ontario in general as well has a great, call it ESG story to tell to investors as to why they should invest in Ontario. The second part of your question on EVs and the adoption and the impacts on oil and gas, there's all kinds of studies that show that oil and gas, or at least gas, is going to be a part of end energy sources. So whether that be vehicles, whether it be home heating, for a long, long time. And it's still a large component. So even though our electricity sector is cleaned up in Canada, the gas as an end energy source is still a huge part of us, and it will be into the future. I think the oil and gas companies are recognizing that there is a shift, and they're looking at how do they rebrand themselves, quite frankly, particularly on the gas side. And so I don't think it's one or the other. I think there's an opportunity for everybody.
Wonderful. Really appreciate it. Let's thank Mark.
Thank you.
And I'm now going to call up Michael Cobbs, our fellow Empire Club director, to offer proper appreciation.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So for many of you, I'm sure this is the first time you've seen Mark speak at an event like this, and you're probably just forming your opinion of him now. But for those of you who knew Mark before he came to Ontario, he was branded in two ways, even before arriving here. He was a strong utility operations guy, and somebody who had a very good moral compass. And today we saw many examples of that. So I just made some notes of some of the things I had heard. You realize that you got to focus not only on shareholder value as a CEO, but the people of Ontario, because it is a lifeline. So it's bigger than just profits. You recognize that Hydro One has a role to play in the economic development of this province, which is refreshing. And your commitment to safety is simply the right thing to do. So thank you very much for your time and insights on behalf of everybody here.
Thank you, Mark.
Wonderful. Just in closing, I'll tell you that we have a couple exciting events coming up. In particular, we're launching our Nation Builder of the Year Award. It is being given to the Toronto Raptors. Masai Ujiri from the Raptors is going to come to accept that at a great event that's taking place on December 13th. We have Stephen Poloz, the Governor of the Bank of Canada, who's coming out to the club as well. He's coming on December 12th. You can find this information and more on our website. Please have a look. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.